the shift in the wellness industry, full stop, has been absolutely extraordinary over the last 10 years. When Delicious Yellow first started, April 2012, it's only 10 years ago. Wellness wasn't a term we were using. Plant-based, which is now obviously an extraordinarily fast-growing industry worth billions of pounds, wasn't even a term that anyone used. You wouldn't find it in a single supermarket. The penetration of the vegan space was about, I think it was about 2 to 5%. It's absolutely tiny. It's now coming towards 50%. I mean, on a kind of anecdotal, personal level, everyone I met thought I was nuts. There is absolutely no one who would have believed that Delicious Yellow would have it's not even in my abilities or then our collective abilities, but I don't think anyone would have ever believed it would have been plausible to create a business of, worth tens of millions within this sort of industry. It just didn't exist. And people weren't thinking about food in terms of health in that sense. So it's been a really fast-growing area and really exciting to be such a big part of. I think the biggest thing that I've seen, though, in terms of the shift has been a much more holistic take on health. I think we started feeling very skeptical, and we certainly saw that our fair share of that as a brand, that food and our lifestyles were genuinely connected to our health, believe it or not, which I think seems like an extraordinary thing to say today because it's such a huge part of the mainstream narrative. But actually, even a decade ago, we were still very, very skeptical that food had such a huge impact on our well-being. I think science is becoming clearer and clearer by the day that that's very, very much the case. And I think we're going to see an even bigger shift in the food industry, I think, in the long term, as we really start to understand the detrimental impact of emulsifiers, preservatives, stabilizers. And it's going to be interesting as well to see where the vegan food space ends up, because so much of the vegan food space that's driving growth is incredibly processed, and that ultra processed food is not necessarily the future. But I think the shift that we're seeing within health at the moment, which is quite exciting, I think, is this more holistic take. I think it's realizing that our health goes so far beyond just what we put on our plate or just how we move our bodies, and actually the mindfulness, the meditation, sleep aspects of it, which is where the direction our app has moved in. I think the joining of the dots between all of this is becoming clearer and clearer. Again, just the more mainstream the research gets, the more we start to understand that, if you're not sleeping properly, it's almost impossible to eat well. Physiologically, your body's just programmed not to help you do that. I think the more we start to understand that, the more interconnected these areas are going to be, and I think that's going to drive some really interesting innovation.